All right. Well, here we are on the Abundance2Give podcast. And I have the good fortune today of having, do you go by Joshua or Josh?
Josh.
So we're both San Diegans. Are you from San Diego originally?
Yep.
Born and raised? Mm-hmm. Where'd you grow up?
Oceanside. Vista, technically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was kind of your first venture into real estate? Was it through family? Was it through others? How were you introduced to it?
So there's all those like pinnacle moments that happen in your life. So I was working at a cell phone booth in the mall at the time.
Which mall?
Carlsbad.
Okay.
Yeah, the old one. So I was like selling cell phones. Like I had to like hound at people.
So you're a sales guy.
Yeah. Oh. Walking by the kiosk. And I had a same girlfriend all through high school. Okay. And I think it was 18 at the time. And I found out she cheated on me. So my dad was in real estate. He lived in Palm Springs. And so I was calling him. I was like venting to him. He's like, dude, just pack up your shit. Come move down. Come get your real estate license. So same day, packed up my stuff, moved to Palm Springs, got my real estate license at 19. So this was 2009. And yeah, I haven't looked back
How long
since.
did you sell real estate?
From 2009 to 2017. So I still have my license. It's just not active.
Right.
Yeah.
You move from the brokerage world or the salesperson world into selling flips.
Well,
or selling yourself and everything else, right?
Yeah. I mean, we kind of have an interesting story because we talked about this a little bit. So realtor 2009, 2017, title insurance, and then real estate investing.
Which title company did you work with?
Title 365.
Okay.
Went to WFG for a short period of time and then Lawyer's Title.
Yeah, that title insurance world is interesting. I actually came out of college doing that for a few years. Then went back to grad school. Mm-hmm. That was the USD thing. Mm-hmm. And had the chance to really run into my future business partner there. Mm-hmm. That didn't know years later was going to turn into the true venture, which is the multifamily apartment game.
Right.
But yeah, it's incredible, like the journeys you go through and the steps and how you learn about certain industries, and you kind of get well versed. Like, would you consider yourself pretty well versed at this point between title insurance, real estate sales, flipping houses now?
Yeah.
Did you do wholesaling as well?
Not primarily. I have. If deals don't make sense for me, then I will. But I typically don't like to do it. But it is like, in terms of a business model, I understand it to be like a more scalable model. I just personally don't love it. I like the idea of flipping houses and seeing from start to finish and the finished product. And also too, like after the last 4 years of doing like what our average wholesale profit per deal is and our average flip profit per deal, I'd rather wait the 90 days and get paid double.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this, for anybody watching this that is considered flipping, wholesaling, apartment game. Mm-hmm. How would you recommend that they go through this kind of trajectory process? Because you hear different people saying different things. Oh, don't do passive income until you do active, or don't do this until you do that. Sure. What would be your recommendation?
I think you have to build up a strong foundation in terms of how much money you have. Because right. I don't think like with buying rentals and passive income, I think is a fallacy. I don't think passive income is not a real thing.
There's nothing truly passive.
No.
Right. Yeah. It's just, you may not be hammering nails every day.
Sure.
But yeah, there's nothing truly passive.
And with today's high interest rates, right? There's no such, like you're not doing, there's no cash.
You're not killing it unless you got your loans.
Yeah. Unless you're paying it down 30, 40%. So with real estate, I think the best way to get in is to either find someone who's flipping, to partner with them and have them give you equity interest. So like be a deal finder, go out, find deals, be an acquisitions person, learn how to find good quality deals, how to underwrite them. So I would say work under someone. I don't think you need to be like a wholesaler or only a flipper. Figure it out. Find someone who's already doing that, doing both, and figure out how to learn from them and then understand the process better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Cause I've flipped homes, did that for a few years, not at a heavy pace. Never really wholesaled. Mm-hmm. Obviously built and developed a lot of product. We did some townhome developments and built and sold that stuff. And then, we started buying multifamilies back in 2009, but it started with a freaking $100,000 condo.
Right. Yeah. I heard that story. That's crazy.
It is wild because I think back at it and I'm like, we actually started with a $100,000 condo in 2010. And then slowly but surely bought some duplexes, fourplexes, and then we graduated into the 5 to 10 unit space, and then realized, oh gosh, like if we really want to scale our money, we got to go out of state,
right?
Because California is too expensive, and then the tenant landlord laws here, so we started going into the Midwest, and that's kind of what really took the trajectory, because of the price per unit that we could buy things at.
Sure,
we could scale, and then begin to partner. Because I think that's the big ticket that people need to understand when you get into the rental space,
right?
Apartment buildings,
right?
Partnerships are everything.
100%. And finding money and all that stuff.
Yeah, because there's some people that are really good at deal finding.
Yep.
Other people that are really good at managing the operations.
Right.
Other people that are really good at raising capital.
Sure.
And so you're probably not going to be good at all three.
No.
Nor should you probably be managing all three.
Right.
Because then something's going to fall.
Right.
So that's where the partnerships are key.
Yeah. And I feel like that's why Marcel and I partnered on a lot of deals when I first started. So that's why I'm sharing my story. That's what I did. So when I first got started in flipping,
I didn't know that you did dwell properties with Marcel.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
So I would bring Marcel deals in the beginning of my journey, and he would give me equity interest. And so now I am doing my own stuff too, but we still partner on a lot of stuff together.
How many deals for somebody doing in different markets, right? But right now, given the low inventory, challenging to find things that pencil.
Sure.
What is your typical percentage margin and or dollar margin on a flip in San Diego now?
I think our average profit per deal is over 6 figures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out the door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you financing them with hard money, or are you all cash in?
Yeah.
What percentage are you financing of the total?
10%.
You're bringing 10% equity. So 90% of the acquisition and rehab is being financed. Private money, I'm presuming.
Actually, him and I in the beginning, we would use our own money. Now with the stuff that I'm doing by myself, I am raising capital in all those deals. It's
even for the equity side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm covering the rehab, but obviously I get reimbursed. So how hard money works, right? If it's 90% of ARV, I'm still covering the rehab costs. So the 10% down is private money. And then I'm funding all of the rehab, and then I'm just getting reimbursed for all of that.
Gotcha. So you'll bring in a private investor to kind of pick up that equity piece that the first lender will not.
Yeah.
What are the terms on your lending right now? Are they 10%? Are they?
I think 11%.
Okay. 2 points, 3 points?
No, I think it's a half a point.
Really?
Yeah. It just depends on your volume. So like when you're first getting, like for anyone listening, if they're first getting started, if they're doing their first flip, it's going to be a higher percentage, and they're going to pay a lot of points. On average, it's probably 1 to 2 points. And probably
Isn't that funny how that happens when like you need the best terms, you get the worst when you're starting?
Right.
It's a risk reward, right?
But, yeah. And you can still find deals to make them pencil. It's just harder, right? I think you have to have really solid, like the bulk of my business has all come from realtors. So building solid relationships, knowing, knowing that you can close on time and you're not going to ask for reductions and mess around during inspections and doing all the stuff that we all hear the horror stories of flippers doing, which is why I think a lot of them have it could be, some people are looked at not the best. I was trying to be
just, you can cuss on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's all right, man.
Yeah. Not look like an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, over the last 3 years, that's been the bulk of my business, but I have started to do more direct to seller marketing now. And so we've definitely done a lot more direct to seller this year.
Is that where you're getting most of your leads, you would say at this point?
No, I think, leads, yes, but deals, no, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're getting a lot of leads.
Yeah. You get a lot of things coming in your funnel.
Right. Yeah. So right now, we are working on a lot. The two that I have that are going to be listed this next week are, one is an agent lead and then one is a direct to seller. Are
they mostly off market, or are you going any MLS stuff?
So one of them was on market, but I had it off market. So we wrote an offer off market. The seller wanted to list it for a week to see if they can get a better offer.
Sure.
They didn't. But I also did this. I'm doing like kind of a partnership program, to where the agent that brought me that deal gets equity interest. So he actually waived his commissions to have the upside in the back end.
Which is, it's mind blowing how agents don't think about this, because even when I was an agent and I went in partnering with Christopher, he was the initial capital.
Sure.
So, and that was at a Tom Ferry conference. This is how it all started.
Oh, how funny.
In 2008, I'm sitting there in the audience with 5,000 other realtors. And Tom Ferry comes out and rah-rahs everybody up like he does. He's like, okay, who here in this audience wants to own rental income property?
Right.
And all 5,000 realtors are like, yeah. And then he says, great. Who here in this audience financially right now can afford rental income property? And this is 2008.
Right.
Like 95% of the hands go down.
Right.
And he says, guys, you're missing the secret. He says, you don't need to have a single dime to own rental income property. You just need to have a friend or friends that can afford to buy rental income property. I said, you're the realtor. You have the license. It's a very special piece.
Right.
You can find deals. You can underwrite them. You can put them together. You can manage them. You can roll in your commissions. You can do all these kind of very sexy sweat equity things.
Right.
You're very valuable to someone who has capital, but can't do what you can do.
Right.
So you need to go find someone who's not in real estate, right? They cannot be in real estate. They can't do what you can do.
Right.
You're going to add enormous value to them because they're going to bring the capital, maybe sign on the first loans, and then you're going to run the show. And for that, you're valuable to them.
Right.
They're very valuable to you. It's a good yin and yang, and there's where partnerships happen.
Yep.
So of course, the light bulb goes off in my mind. I'm saying, well, I'm getting my ass kicked right now. It's 2008.
All right.
I don't have the money to do this, but I know I can.
Right.
So that's where Christopher Pulley came in because I went to him and we had talked a year or two earlier about buying apartments.
Right.
And I went to him and I said, Chris, this is the time. I said, I know we need to buy. I said, I just can't right now. I said, I can go find all the deals. I can underwrite them. I'll even roll in all my commissions and take an equity piece.
Right.
I just need someone who can sign on the loan right now and can bring in the initial equity. And I said, for that, you'll get a return on that. Plus you'll get 50% of the deals. And then I'll take the other 50%. Boom. That's how the company was formed. And
didn't you meet him too I heard your story when we were at that, when we connected,
the back of the grad school classroom.
Yeah.
He was literally sitting there like
so
this
funny.
on my laptop, and I'm typing away, and I'm like, look over, and I'm like, what the heck is that guy doing over there? And he's looking at a battle in Iraq, like a live feed from a satellite in Iraq, and I'm like, dude, what do you? He's like, I'm looking at a battle in Iraq right now, and I'm like, who are you? And what are you doing? And he told me, oh, I work for this company, blah, blah, blah. We designed the software for the U.S. military that helps just like FedEx barcodes. It's a barcoding system for every U.S. military asset in the battlefield where they can track it in real time and know, okay, this tank's running out of gas and these guys need water. These guys need bullets and trains and whatever else they need. And they can see it moving in real time and they can watch it and then help the military provide logistics and supply in the real-time environment. I was like, wow. So he's done well, and he was chief technology officer and then started his own companies from that. But he was a great capital source. He wanted real estate. He had major connections. Right. I could bring the opportunities, right? And that's kind of what you need if you can't do every aspect.
Totally. How old were you in 2008?
You trying to age me now, man?
No, I'm not trying to age you. No, I think over time, like you kind of, so the reason
I would have been, I'm 43 now.
43.
So that was, I would have been in my 20s then.
Okay.
Or wait,
mid or late 20s? I can't do math right now.
That would have been, 2006 would have been, I would have been late 20s. So that would have been like 30 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, so in 2009, when I got into real estate, my dad, back then they were doing like seller financing on new construction at like 3%. And houses were like 150 grand in Palm Springs. And it was right next to Coachella. So my dad was telling me, he's like, dude, like, you're making like 40 grand at the time as like a young 19-year-old kid. Like we should just lock these up. You're not having to put a ton of money down. It's 150,000. You're putting $10,000 down. And they're doing seller financing. He's like, worst case, you rent it out. Shit. But I'm like, as an 18-year-old kid, like you don't understand like what that looks like. Even though I was in real estate.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I don't think I would have understood the opportunity that was in my face at that time. So like with you going to Tom Ferry in 2008, like being in your 30s, you took what he was saying and you understood the opportunity. Right. Where like when I was younger, I didn't understand. Like when I first got into real estate, and now
that's a very good point because that goes back to your environment. And so this is kind of one of my passions in life, on top of philanthropy and everything else, is hence the Abundance2Give, is to help underprivileged children that don't know what they don't know, and have amazing drive in life and can be amazing, but they just don't know that there's opportunities outside of maybe a bad environment they're in. Right. So hence the same thing is because if you know, and you're at least aware of it, then it's just a matter of, are you going to go get it? Right. Or how do you go get it really? So I agree with that 100% because I had a little bit of upbringing through family, being around real estate. Sure. So I knew, hey, I could see what can happen.
Right.
And then being coached and mentored a bit. And then I'll tell you the graduate school, having that chance to go to the Brennan graduate school at USD for real estate.
Right.
Hands down, one of the best programs I've ever been in because it wasn't just what you learned. It was the proximity of people.
Sure.
I mean, my mentor was Scott McMillan. I don't know if you know who McMillan family is. Yeah. Okay. Scott McMillan, I spent a week in his office, like shadowing him like a little fly on the wall. Because what was one of the cool things with the Brennan Moores is towards the end of the program, they say, okay, pick somebody that you would die to hang out with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just going to throw this shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
And I said, Scott McMillan. And they're like, oh yeah, we have relationships with him. And I'm like, you do? So I got to hang out with him, his brother Mark, and the whole McMillan family for a week. I probably spent more time in their racing warehouse, learning about their racing company,
their trucks, than
I did the real estate side. But I learned one of the best negotiation tactics in my entire life, going to a high level meeting with Scott McMillan in his office, big boardroom table. It's actually circular on purpose by design, and it's a fishbowl. And everybody comes into the room, and I guess this was a big meeting because they had to discuss some big stuff down at Liberty Station. And so the other party comes in, you're sitting around a circular table, and then, Scott, I'm walking in behind Scott, and he says, okay, sit over there. So I sit up over there, and he sits down and he starts going through things, and he says, guys, listen, he takes out a sheet of paper, blank sheet, 8 by 11, draws a circle on it. And he says, if we just simply try and cut up this circle, this pie today, we're not going to get anywhere. Like we're going to walk out of here and no deal's going to get done.
Sure.
Then he draws a bigger circle around that initial circle. And he says, today we're going to expand the pie. He said, we're not going to chop it up. We're going to expand it. So that way everybody can find a way to win. And then we can get this done today. And of course you just notice everybody's walls go down.
Right.
And then they start talking about things well beyond just the money.
Sure.
What are you going to do with the money?
Right.
Do you need to avoid some taxes? Do you need to do this? Do you need to take this and do this? So they really came up with a very creative plan to meet the needs of the other party and them. And it wasn't just all about the money. And I said, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
How to do that correctly to get people to move. And he always creates circular tables. So everybody moves towards the center. Because when you create tables like this, where you're sitting on opposite sides, it automatically subconsciously puts a wall. And this is all psychology stuff.
Right.
So everything's circular tables in his office. The whole freaking place down there was circular tables by design. So everybody sits and comes to the center. It's little things like that.
Yeah, it's crazy to look at that stuff now to understand like what the purpose of him doing that was. Right. Like I don't think like if you were to walk in the room and it was a circular table, but then he started drawing that, like, would you have known what he was doing until afterwards where you're like,
not till afterwards.
Wait a second.
Because I had no idea until afterwards. And then we were in his office and I was having like a little one-on-one and he explained his methodology and it was taught through his dad, Corky.
Interesting.
I was like, well, I just got $1 billion worth of education.
Right.
So stuff like that was influential because it gives you the chance to see things that you wouldn't normally see, be around proximity and people that you wouldn't normally get the chance to.
And that's the power of like being around. We were talking about it before we went live, like being around some of the conferences and some are like around these bigger people, high level.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like I think a lot of times when I'm around those big influential people, I've paid to get into those rooms and I've paid to have their phone number, for one-on-one coaching or whatever it was. But it's crazy how quickly that can change not only your financial, but like mentally, how quickly it can change to open your eyes to opportunity and understand like the power of what you can do.
Yeah. Have you read these books?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the Atomic Habits book that I have like literally tabbed these things out. People think I'm nuts, but I tab it on purpose because what ends up happening is if maybe you're an audiobook person or Kindle or whatever it is, totally fine. But I felt when I was doing that, I wouldn't remember a lot. I'd read it, but then if I had to go reference it, I couldn't do it. So I'll come through and reference and highlight the most important pieces of a chapter so I can reference it. Your environment. I mean, you want to talk about habit creating, habit stacking, all these things that you can do that I've been starting to implement. But I tell you, the importance of your environment is everything.
Oh yeah. It can change your life dramatically.
Who's been, other than maybe parents and father and people closest to you, has there been a mentor that's kind of in the public eye that you've had a chance to connect with, or that's been a mover and a shaker for you?
Yeah, I've had multiple. I think every step of my career, like in different aspects of my life, there's been people who have been powerful and very influential in my life. But I think I needed them at that time. And then there was someone else who maybe took their place eventually. So my dad was absolutely one of them when I first got into, changed from going and selling cell phones to getting into real estate. And then I had a mentor after that when I was in real estate. And then I had a mentor when I went to title insurance. And then I've had a mentor with flips. So it's always evolved in the stages of my life and the seasons of where I was at. So I think you always, I don't want to say you outgrow your mentors, but you eventually evolve into a different season. So,
well, yeah. I mean, I even, I think about some of the people I've been around, that have mentored me, and yeah, you see it happen all the time where, talking from a big perspective, you take a Tom Brady with a Drew Bledsoe,
right?
I mean, they talk about that relationship all the time. Clearly Tom outpays Drew.
Sure.
So it's going to happen, and that's a good thing, as you're kind of growing and learning about, how to be the best versions of you.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you?
People you're saying?
Yeah. Who was at what point in your life do you feel, because I think back to like, there's all these pivotal moments you have where like, your life changes, whether it's negative or positive. And sometimes the negative helps your positive. There's
been some pivotal moments, I think, in my life that have brought perspective. One of them was the financial crisis, watching my dad lose everything. It was pretty major. I would say the other one was my sister passing, and that was in 2018. She's 46 years old. I mean, it was wild. But it puts a lot of perspective in life really quickly. And anybody that's had tragedy in moments like that, where someone close to them has passed, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I think it kicks you in the butt to say, listen, you have a limited time on this planet.
Yeah.
And we all know this, but then we just go through life and you're like, oh crap. A lot of times pass. And am I in the same place last year that I was this year, and so on and so forth. Right. So it makes you want to say, what do you want to really do?
Sure.
What kind of impact do you want to leave?
Right.
Not just from a financial, hey, I want to accomplish all these things professionally,
right?
But what's the personal side of it from a purpose?
Right.
I would say I've really enjoyed learning from Patrick Bet-David. When I was down at his conference recently, this first day we were there, he grabbed everybody and he says, okay. And he puts this graphic up on the screen, and it was 7 mountain peaks. And he says, this is how, if you do this correctly, you will drive your life well beyond the money. He says, these are the 7 mountains that inspire people and move nations.
Right.
And you need to pick out which ones are going to work for you.
Right.
Because let me give you an example and walk through mine. So for Patrick Bet-David, this is how his work. Business is number 1 for him. Have a very successful business. Media is number 2. Government is number 3 for him. And family is number 4. And it kind of works where he had to have a successful business, which then helped him grow the media company Valuetainment.
Right.
He's leveraging Valuetainment to grow this massive media company, to then influence government, to then be able to have an impact from a family perspective, not just his personal family, but philanthropy and giving back, because that's the family side of it.
Sure.
Because he says, look, I just made $200 million selling my insurance company.
Right.
I don't really need to do anything.
Sure.
But if you want to know what gets me up every day, it's having one of these 7 mountains in front of me, because these are the 4 that drive me. This gets me inspired because I can wake up every day and it's not about the money anymore. It's about how can we build an amazing media platform to then influence people the way that we believe, right, in our mindset, to then give back to society and impact the world.
Right.
Because that's a hell of a lot better than trying to go after money, which is why you see a lot of people who make a bunch of money, but then they feel very unfulfilled.
Sure.
And that's because the money was the drive, not the purpose behind it. And so that was impactful for me, because I sat there going, okay, well, now you have to do a self-identity test. So everybody goes back to their rooms that night, and you literally have this kind of coming to Jesus moment of like, okay, what's going to move your needle?
Right.
So clearly business is one for me. But then I realized media is another one, right? And how can you use media and profile to influence the world in a positive way? And then the other one's education, to help educate people to, whether it's multifamily, which is what I do for a living, and apartments and investments and all that, to educate them. And then lastly is the family side. So I'm really big, not just protecting my personal family, but giving back, right? And doing things that are close to me.
Sure. Yeah, I think
like, what are philanthropies you care about? Like, what are passions? Like, well beyond.
Yeah. So I was going to say when I was younger, I think for people who are like just getting started, I don't think I knew like the vision. There wasn't a vision, right? It was just,
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So in the beginning of
just trying to make a buck,
right? In the beginning, it was like money, right? I was driven by money, but it didn't last very long. And then you plateau at a certain point when you're making whatever.
You get into a hamster wheel.
Yeah, and then now it's become kind of a different thing. Like I'm not motivated by money. It's like, you know, with employees, like watching their visions and saying, okay, we align together in this vision, but I want to watch you like make the most money possible, pay off your debt, you know, pay off whatever you need to pay off with watching them succeed. But also too, it's like family. Like I'm inspired by my wife.
Newly married man.
Newly married. Yeah.
We're going to get into that in a second.
That's fine. We can get into it.
She's gonna be watching this recording.
She actually just started listening, which is kind of funny. Yesterday she called me. She's like, I was actually just listening to your podcast. And I was like, oh, that's the first episode you listened to. Asshole.
I love it.
But it's interesting. So we got engaged last year. We can just get into it now. That was part of my vision. We got engaged last year. And I think that moment was one of those pivotal moments where I was like, okay, I'm not just doing this for me anymore. I have someone else who I'm doing it for as well. And so it inspired me. And then I realized too, being around other people, that like, there's just so much more to life than just a business. And I think the media thing is a huge thing that I didn't realize. Like when I started posting consistently on social and doing a podcast and all those other things, I didn't realize like, at first, when I was doing it, I was like, okay, let's grow this. Let's figure out like what it's going to do. But then it's like the connections that you make, like you and I, like we connected randomly and then we're on a podcast together shooting the shit. Right. Yeah. And then I've connected with so many other people in the industry and not even in real estate, just like outside entrepreneurs and all those things that like now I'm inspired by those people who I've met, who I'm created relationships with. So it's a fun
100%
journey.
And it is those relationships. And even Ryan Panetta talks about this, why he even got into podcasting and kind of blew up the way he has, is those connections and relationships that are built through having a conversation like this. And maybe you connect, maybe you don't. Right. Maybe you share core values, maybe you don't. But that's the point of doing this, to kind of learn. And I would say even more so, having conversations with people you don't agree with and being able to do it in a, I guess, a lighthearted way, which is why I kind of laugh about PBD, right? Patrick Bet-David, because he has people on his podcast all the time that he is completely polar opposite with. Right. But I dig it because he's able to have an intellectual, safe conversation that is highly informative to where you can see both perspectives without ripping each other new, you know what. Right. And that's, it's rare today because everybody just wants to put up a wall and start calling each other names. Right. Yeah. And that's not going to get it anywhere. Yeah. So, I agree. And once Patrick Bet-David realized he couldn't be president of the United States, I'll never forget this at his conference. He's like, listen, I'm using the media, but I can't be president of the United States. Right. So therefore I have to use the media and this massive media following to kind of influence government in a way based on what my core belief systems are. I was like, that's pretty interesting.
Have you got his new book?
No, what, the enemy between thingy? Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm ruining that for you, Patrick. Sorry if you're even listening to this thing.
I bought it I pre-ordered it. Oh no, service. Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
Oh yeah, that one.
I'm like an hour in right now. But yeah, I'm a big audiobook guy. So I've been, last year I started in November. So I've listened 30 minutes every single day since last November. So I finished 40. This is my 42nd book this year.
Holy And I thought I read, bro.
Well, I'm not reading. I'm listening.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. So let me read a couple statements. I want to get your thoughts on these real quick.
Yeah. So however many books that is.
Wow. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. Really good. So this talks about habits in the Atomic Habits book. It says it's easy to get bogged down trying to find the optimal plan for change. the fastest way to lose weight, right? The best program to build muscle, the perfect idea for a side hustle, right? These are all ideas.
Right.
And we are so focused on figuring out the best approach that we never get around to actually taking action because we got to get stopped and stuff. The best enemy, in the words that says the best is the enemy of the good. Meaning if you're trying to be the best and perfectionist versus just going for it and taking action, then you get stopped and stuff. And then this is James Clear says, I refer to this as the difference between being in motion versus taking action. The two ideas sound familiar, but they're not the same. When you're in motion, you're planning, you're strategizing, you're learning. Those are all good things, but they don't give you a result. So this kind of goes to, you have a lot of people that say they're busy. I'm doing things. I'm planning this. I'm doing this, right? All the time. Talk.
Yep.
But they're in motion.
Right.
But they're not in action.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Or do you think?
100%. So yesterday we did like a Q&A with the podcast episode and someone asked about, there was like a specific question that they asked about flipping. And it was someone who actively asks me a lot of questions. But I think there's a point to like I love being around other people and asking questions, but then there's a point where it creates indecision. So you have to take action and not allow indecision to take place. You can listen to enough stuff to where it's like, you just need to, you have to take the action.
No. And there's the quintessential conference tour people.
Yeah.
Right. You go to a lot of conferences, you go to masterminds, you're constantly in this amazing learning mode and reading books and getting very educated. But you still also get into the indecision of paralysis by analysis.
Right.
And this comes down to a lot of personality traits and types.
Sure.
Do you know about the DISC testing with Tom?
Yeah, of course.
Tony Robbins.
Tony
Sorry.
Robbins, yeah.
So I took this many, many years ago. And in that process, I took it and I was a CS, which basically meant I was a hyper analytical planner, plan for a plan, hyper organized, which is all great. Very analytical, love spreadsheets, good stuff. But then I was an S, which is called soccer mom. So don't laugh at that. But what it means is you also don't like risk.
Okay.
You like consistency and you don't like a lot of change. So I'm sitting there going, oh shit. So I'm hyper analytical.
Sure.
And I don't like change or risk. I'm going nowhere in life based on my vision. My vision is not aligned with my personality style. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I identified this. Well, I'm not going to be able to change the primary, the analytical C.
Right.
That's like in your blood, which is who you are. The secondary can evolve. So I said, listen, my vision is here. It's not in alignment with my current state.
Right.
So I have to evolve that secondary soccer mom into the D, which is the driver director.
Sure.
And I did it by force and fear. By force and fear. Because my biggest fear, somebody had asked me when I was doing this, they're like, what is your biggest fear, Justin? And I said, honestly, having my 80-year-old self meet my 30-year-old self and then looking at him and saying, I didn't do it. I didn't go for it. And I regret that.
Yeah.
Like that is honestly one of my biggest fears. Like at least not leaving it on the table. And I mean, if you fail, fucking fail. But I'm going to fail trying.
Right.
And if that means it's going up in smoke, then it's going up in smoke, baby. But at least I know I gave it. So you can do what's called calculated risk. And this is where it's not to go out there and be egregious or wild or reckless. Yeah, reckless.
Yeah. Right.
So I can still use that C personality that's analytical to calculate risk.
Right.
But you're going to get to the edge of that cliff, baby, in any decision you're going to make.
Right.
And sometimes you just got to go and allow the how to show up.
Right.
And I'm sure you've heard that a lot from different motivational people and coaches and mentors.
Yeah.
Have you had to do that in your life, and when?
I feel like my biggest fear is to be average, which is almost similar to what you said.
But what's average?
My average.
Okay.
So whatever you think average is. So I think, I mean,
because average for Elon Musk is a little bit different than average for Mr. Brennan over here.
Right. I think it's what my average is. And I don't know what my average is, but I think as long as I'm taking action every day, I'm not average, or I'm doing more than what the average person would do. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And that, because this is one of the better books I've read.
It's a good one.
Yeah. It really sets in place. Did you know the average time it takes to really instill a habit, 67 days?
I thought it was less than that. Oh, 67.
Yeah. And they have it on a graphic. It's more about frequency than it is length of time.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter. I mean, you could do something 3 times over 67 days. You're not going to get it. It's about frequency.
Right.
But I started this habit stacking thing. Are you familiar with this at all?
Of course. Yeah.
So, and I think I'd posted about it. You wake up at this time, and then after you wake up at this time, then you do this. And then after you've done that, then you do this. And what you're doing is you're stacking habits you need to do or create within habits you already do.
Sure.
So I wake up, I make my bed, I have a cup of coffee, and I do one other thing like that habit's in, like it's in. So now I need to build other habits I want to do, which is reading 10 minutes every morning.
Right.
Meditating or doing affirmations or, something else that I want to do. That's like master your morning, master your day.
Right.
And so by doing that, I've now stacked things that I need to do within things I'm already doing. And that way it makes that you're going to build it no matter what, because you're forced to.
Right. That's why I think the 75 hard is such a morning routine hack.
Woo!
Right. Like you see that and you're like, man, these fuckers are just tricking these people into stacking routines. But it's great, right? Like for people who are like in a bad place or don't have a great morning routine, fucking do 75 hard.
But that is some David Goggins shit. I mean, that's legit.
It is, but I think you can do it in a way to where, because it's just sticking to a diet. You don't have to be like it doesn't have to be a crazy. It's very like open ended, right? So your diet, my diet could be a bulk. I could be eating extra, whatever it is, but it's no cheating and it's like no booze, but reading 10 minutes a day, walking outside and exercising, like all that stuff.
So it's not a hardcore workout thing?
No,
I thought it was.
It is. It's a workout thing. I think a lot of people take it as like a diet.
Oh, okay.
But the way that I look at it is just like a crazy like for morning routine.
Do you cold plunge? It's like the whole phase.
Don't.
It's the whole phase, man.
Dude, so I tried it. So for when we were after the wedding in Cabo. Have you done it before?
Yes, and I need to do it. I mean, clearly I know it works.
Sure.
I just do cold showers right now. I'm not at that 40-degree temperature. I'm kind of in the 50s.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's acceptable.
But cold shower. Cold shower.
We did a spa day when we were in Cancun or Cabo for after the wedding, and they had a cold plunge outside. And Whitney, my wife, she's like, we should do it. And I was like, all right, you go first. So
let's watch.
So she put like her toe in. She like jumped out. She's
like, no, you got to go.
She's like, there's no way. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to like jump in. So I jumped in. I was in there for maybe like 25 seconds. Your body it
goes into a mini hypothermia.
Oh yeah. You feel like you're dying. Like it's like needles like hitting your skin. And I got out and I was
what was the temperature of the water?
I think it was like 50 something.
Oh, so it wasn't even that. I mean, not
50, maybe below 50. Because
usually like that 45 47? To 48 is kind of where people step into these things. And I have friends that do it now. And it's like anything. Your first 2 or 3 times is going to be a complete disaster nightmare.
Right.
It's not really until you learn the breathing techniques prior to.
Right.
You watch Joe Rogan do it and all these guys do it. And there's so many people doing it and posting about it now. And it is incredible. It hands down works.
Sure.
Do you know who Gary Brecka is?
No, I think you've said that name though. I don't.
So Gary Brecka, I was introduced to him at a Tony Robbins conference in 2022. That was for EXP Realty, and went out and was in Dallas. And prior to Tony Robbins coming out, they had Gary Brecka. And Gary Brecka comes out and he's walking on stage and he says, okay, so here's the thing. Most people are interested in what I used to do versus what I'm doing now. Once they hear about it, they're like, oh, tell me about that. Not like what you currently do. Like that's crazy stuff. Right. So he was the lead death predictor for the life insurance companies.
What?
Yeah. He's like, if you give me 5 years of medical data, 5 years of demographics, 5 years of this, I can tell you to the month you're going to die.
Okay. I have seen him. He's 10X Health, right?
Yes. Yeah. So this is where it gets into it, because that was his initiation into it. And then his big moment of hockey sticking was when he was called to do a health evaluation on Grant Cardone. And one of Grant's big investors was saying, listen, I'm going to give you this $10 million or $20 million, but you need to do a health evaluation with my guy, and then we'll give you the money. So Grant's like, fuck you, but I'll do it. Fine. Right. So he does it. And, Gary talks about this story where he had Grant get on the phone, and Grant's like, yeah, man, I got 8 minutes for you. I got lotions, potions, all those other things. I'm good to go. I got 15 doctors at my yin yang and I'm good.
Right.
He's like, okay, no problem. I got 8 minutes to talk to you a little bit. And Grant's like, yeah. So then he says, well, based on your blood work we did and all these other things I'm looking at, are you noticing this, or this? Like when you get up in the bed in the morning or get out of bed in the morning, and by the time you get to the kitchen, you have brain fog and you can't remember why you went there and blah, blah, blah. Right? All these little things. And he's like, I don't know what happened to your libido, but it went out the door about a month ago or whatever he's talking about. And he's like, oh my God. And he says, Grant went from being cocky and arrogant to like the quietest dude he's ever heard in his life, shut his door and took it off speaker. And that's where the whole thing started.
Interesting.
And then obviously from that point, Gary's had a massive impact on a lot of people. So I went ahead and did the genetic testing for myself.
Did you?
Learned a lot. I've been taking the supplements for the last year. I can tell you firsthand, the reason I did it was because I'd done my blood work a couple months prior to that, and then found out my LDL, which is like the bad cholesterol, was high. Everything else was good.
Sure.
Except my LDL. So we were trying to figure out if it was hereditary or not, or what was it. And Gary went in and says, no, you just have these things here and here and here. You have insufficient nutrients in your body that aren't converting, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
All his scientific talk. So I went and did the genetic testing, got the supplements, been taking them. LDL's dropped. Everything's in line. And it's been a year now. And I can't tell you how good I feel by doing these things. And it's basic stuff. This is magnesium, folate, thorn, like some other things, but in the right, dosages.
Yeah.
Correct. Milligrams.
Yeah.
Wild.
Crazy. Have you seen the 86-hour fast that Dana White did?
No, but I know Dana White got heavy with Gary Brecka and saved his life.
Okay, so
basically,
since we're live, I'm going to pull this picture up.
Okay,
but it's
Dana White's done a 180 on his life, and he said there was an emergency call that had to happen between him and Gary Brecka and it's on YouTube about this.
So Gary Brecka is the one that
saved his life, pretty much.
I'm pretty sure it was the same guy who told him to do this 86-hour fast. But look how shredded he got in 86 days.
86 days or hours?
Hours, sorry.
Okay.
86 hours of fasting. Yeah. So
that's like 5 days.
4 days, 5 days. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So he did, it was a water fast. So water only for the first 2 days. And then he did, I think it was 12 ounces of bone marrow for the following days, but he only could do it twice a day with water. But he dropped like 25 pounds or something like that, which again, like my fitness in me is like, okay, well, you do an 86-hour fast, you go have a cheeseburger afterwards, you're just going to rebound. You're going to just lost a bunch of water weight. So, but still, I actually kind of am
that's wild.
Inspired to do it. I don't know if I can do like that long, but I think I could start 24
Well, the human
hours.
body can survive, what do they say, 7 days just on water?
Yeah.
Is that right?
So
without food?
They said it was the same kind of study as what it feels like to go in a cold plunge in terms of your body, like
going into a freak out state.
Yeah. So you're like starving yourself. So your body feels like you're dying in a sense.
I mean, it's like eating itself from within.
Yeah.
What do you think holds a lot of people back? I mean, you can say fear, but because I know I've watched a lot of your content and stuff that you talk about, mindset, and, we share a lot of that core value system. But you see very talented people, right? Very smart people that could easily, outpace other folks who actually do go.
Sure.
What do you think is the differentiator?
Indecision. Yeah, I think indecision is the biggest thing that holds people back. I mean, there's fear, which I think can be a version of indecision. But overthinking, overanalyzing every situation, needing to know everything. You don't need to know everything.
Yeah, you're not going to have perfection. You need what do they call it? The viable product.
Yeah. I think we were just talking about it, like action cures all of that.
Yep.
Like action will cure indecision. Action will cure fear. You just need to take the right steps, and whatever that is, like real estate, you're a teacher, whatever you want to do, indecision will ruin you. Like you need to take the action.
Take the action.
Yeah. I think it could be that simple.
Have you met Roland Frazier?
I have not. No. I met him though.
Mr. Jeff Fenster.
Yeah.
So Roland Frazier, really well known for buying companies, right, in unique kind of creative ways.
Sure.
He's connected with Kent Clothier, and even they're all. It's funny how a lot of these interconnected through circles.
Yeah.
Did you read his book?
Yeah.
The Relationship Bank Account. What did you think? We're giving you a live, review, Jeff.
So I I actually did a giveaway with his book. So I read it. I've always been.
See how I keep tabbing these things?
I love it.
But it's great because I can go back.
Yeah. I've always been a big relationship person. I think with any business, like you have to, in sales, I think I was never, at a certain point, you go from being maybe sales to being a relationship person and a connector. And with title insurance, as you know, like when you were in title insurance, and even as a realtor, or actually any business for that matter, being a connector or building quality relationships is the most important thing and the most fundamental thing you can have for your business.
100%.
So when I read that book, I read it
Proximity of people.
Yeah. Dan Fulkerson actually gave me his book. And I didn't even know who Jeff was until Dan was on my podcast and he's like, hey, bro, you should read this. And so I read it cover to cover in like 3 days. And I realized what I always felt was in his writing in this book.
And he's putting it into kind of a strategy and tactic.
Yeah.
In the same thing. I mean, I knew, hey, this is important.
Yeah.
But until you see that his entire life is literally this book.
100%.
Because he talks about it. I mean, because we were up at his office in Carlsbad Vista and chatting about things. And we just gotten to know each other earlier this year. And he was telling me, he's like, I started with a payroll company. I had no idea how to do payroll. But I had a friend that did, and I'd come doing some sales and payroll, but I needed to run a payroll company and blah, blah, blah. I had no idea how to run a payroll company, but I had a friend that did. So that relationship capital got him in the door and gave him opportunities for some big accounts and having relationships at the grocery store, checkout and on and on.
It's a crazy story.
That blew his payroll company up. And then he was able to sell that with a nice profit. Then he's like, well, I want to do digital marketing. I have no idea about digital marketing, but he had a good friend that knew a good friend that was friends with Neil Patel. Biggest digital marketing guy out there with Google and so forth. And that's how he got into digital marketing and like grew this massive digital marketing company, sold that, did well. And then now he's in his passion project, which is Everbowl. But he's like, I've never run a restaurant. I have no idea how to do any of this crap, but I know people that do, hence relationship capital. And it's just people to people to people. And he's just very good at meeting people, connecting people, and then executing on a plan. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's like, as you get older and you grow, and like, that's important, just executing. We're talking about it, being a visionary, right? And then having someone else to help you execute it is important. It's funny you brought that up because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, his speech and the way that he talks, and he was talking about like being a restaurant owner. He's like, restaurant owners are normally chefs, and
which is why it fails.
And for him, like opening Everbowl, in my mind, I was like, okay, does he actually like acai bowls?
Well, no, he does believe in the food.
No, I know. It was more.
But it is funny.
More of a joke because when he was talking about it at that speech, I was like, I wonder if he actually even likes acai bowls, or if there was just a market for acai bowls.
Both. I mean, but there's plenty of places that serve acai.
Right.
He just was able to create a beautiful brand and a product and a process, and maybe make it a little bit unique.
Right.
And then had some brilliant connections. There was some famous people too, but that was through relationship capital and bank accounts that he was able to then execute on those.
Right.
Ed Milet. Have you ever had a chance to meet him?
I didn't.
I'm still waiting for my moment, Ed. I need to meet you. I've heard you speak.
WealthCon, he spoke at.
Yeah. What did you think?
I actually left early that day. I'm someone who, so that we were talking about it before we got on here. I am someone who, if I pick up something, like one nugget from something, I'm like, okay, I don't need to say anything else. I'm going to go home and I'm going to execute on that one thing.
Gotcha.
So I went home a day early. And that was actually the moment where I was like, okay, I need to take this social stuff very seriously. The power of proximity, the power to be in rooms with people who think bigger, are bigger. The power to meet new people. So I got home and I was like, I hired a full-time video guy, editor who's doing all my stuff. I'm like, the power of social media and to do all that stuff is huge.
And you've executed pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. I implement it. I'm an implementer. So like as soon as if I have something that's on my list that I need to do and I know it's important, I'm going to do it right away. There's no question. I don't have a decision whatsoever.
Yeah, similar to me. As I'll take tidbits. I'm not a big note taker at some of these rah-rah conferences. And I think we mentioned it. Every year I go to 4 conferences and it's 2 rah-rahs and 2 strategy / tactic.
Right.
And you're kind of saying, hey, well, like WealthCon is more of a rah-rah. like, I didn't know if I liked that. And I said, well, it's a rah-rah. I said, because you said I want tactic and strategy. And I said, well, then you need to go to a tactic and strategy conference. And I said, Patrick Bet-David's is amazing for that.
Sure.
His vault, because it literally is, they give you a book that's about this big.
Right.
And you sit down and it's, if somebody wanted a rah-rah, they'd be bored as hell.
Right.
Because they're like, oh my God, there's like so much strategy and tactic. But that's what you're there for.
Sure.
You're not there to get rah-rah'd. You want a rah-rah, go to Ed Milet or WealthCon. And,
right.
You know,
and I don't know that I knew what I was getting myself into because I was never a big conference person. I think when I was a realtor, I was always go to the Tom Ferry stuff. But,
sure.
That was some tactical stuff for an agent, and it was very specific, right? It was targeted. So like with WealthCon, I think I had something in my head that like I would get something out of maybe my flipping business, but it did the opposite. Instead, it brought me to media and digital marketing space. So,
which indirectly can help.
Was amazing
because all you're doing is raising profile.
Right.
I mean, that's simply what's happening 100%. With the media side is raising profile to get awareness. And then from that, opportunities can happen, right? Because people come into this sphere of yours.
Right. I think too, it opens your mind. One of the things like when you start networking with other people and I don't want to say financially, but it is, right? Like the guy who I interviewed yesterday, Josh Villarreal, like him and I were talking after the podcast and we were talking about other people who we know and different people in the spaces and the amount of money that people are bringing in is unreal. And for the longest time, like, you think $10,000 a month is a lot, right? Like I see younger entrepreneurs and people who I talk to who are like just trying to, make their first 10,000 and they get to 20,000, 30,000, 50,000. And to know that it's possible, right? Like now I don't even like to think that I make
through the digital side.
Anything.
Yeah.
Like what's possible in general.
Sure.
Right. Like you meet new people and you're like, holy shit. Like now I didn't know it was possible for me to make 6 figures a month, but now I do. Right. Yep. And like, I wouldn't have told like 3 or 4 years ago, like I would have had no clue that that's where I would be today. Yep. But like, it's possible.
100%.
And like we talked about action, it's literally just implementing.
Yeah. And what type of business is it going to be in, right? There's brick and mortar businesses, there's digital spaces. Is it scalable? Is it not scalable? Right. How much effort do you have to put in to make X?
Right. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. This is crazy. I think those things just open. So talking about conferences, just opens your eyes to what's possible.
So passions outside of your daily job. What do you do, man? Do you like to surf? Do you like to snowboard? Do you like to race dogs? I mean, what?
I do have a little old dog. Yes. Dude, I'm passionate about what I'm doing right now, to be honest with you.
And it's straight flipping houses right now.
Yeah. And then the media stuff, like the podcast, I think I'm more focused, to be honest. I don't know that I spend a whole lot of time in the flipping business.
Okay.
I have a team underneath me who's kind of handling that, running that acquisition.
Are they,
and stuff like that.
So they're finding the deals, locking them up. And then do you have project managers that are then executing the business plans?
I'm kind of the project manager right now, which sucks. Especially with one.
But if you're good at it,
I'm not good at it. I'm not. No, I think you, we were talking about action, right? Like I know that I'm not good at it. Like I'm not good with project management. I'm not good at dealing with contractors. What
would you say is your best trait? I mean, you're an action taker. You put things into action, but is it being more here or do you like being in the business?
I don't like being in the business. No.
Okay.
Yeah. I like doing this stuff. I like building relationships. I like talking to people. I like being out in the field.
A little more of a sales guy. Cause that's how you kind of start in that selling cell phones, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Selling cell phones.
I mean, when you mentioned that, I'm like, oh, so you're straight up. I mean, it takes, cause I remember walking through the malls and still do. And you see the little podiums and, But
I think as you grow as like an older, like now where I'm at today, I'm 34, I think. I forget.
All right. So
I forget.
You have 10 years on me. Mm-hmm. So I'm 44, 34. Mm-hmm. That's good because I even look back and I was talking with Kent Clothier recently at his boardroom mastermind. He's 10 years on me. Mm-hmm. And I remember after I pitched kind of what I'm doing and blah, 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 he kind of pulled me aside afterwards and he said, listen, you have 10 years on me. Mm-hmm. He says, if I were you in your position 10 years ago, at this point, I'd be a fucking billionaire. So he says, you got to make sure that you stay inch wide, mile deep, my friend. Because if you get too spread out, then you're going to... Because the business plan I was pitching was a little bit wide. Mm-hmm. And he's like, listen, scale it and focus. Because if you do what you're saying you're going to do, if I were in your position 10 years ago, with that decade on me. So even saying this to you, I mean, you got 20 years on us. Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
But you got to stay focused.
What was your wide goal?
So we had a lot of different businesses that I wanted to master, right? And this is kind of where the inch wide, mile deep focus. And he says, listen, and that came into the mountains thing. So that's where we had to really have the self-identity moment to say, okay, what are your mountain peaks that you care mostly about? So that was business, media, education, family.
Yeah.
Like those four were like my core value belief systems, and they can all interact with one another to drive one another. But you got to have a successful business first before you can then master the other three.
Sure.
So that's where, hey, you got to be successful in the multifamily business, continue to grow that and focus deep and go for that, because you have a great opportunity with some of the distressed stuff coming up and everything that's hitting to really go after that. And then once that's at a certain point, sure, the media is there. You can continue to grow that. Education, great scalable business.
Sure.
So, get that set up, but still multifamily,
right?
Because that'll help everything else. And then you can get into the philanthropy stuff, which you have big visions for helping different philanthropies out that you care deeply about.
Yeah. I don't think you could do the media stuff. Like if I was only focused, like if I didn't have people who were running the flipping side,
well, you couldn't, because you got to make money.
Yeah, of course.
You got to make money.
There's no way things would, fall to the wayside. But once you become or be able to kind of hire and delegate for those specific tasks, you can focus a little bit more on the other stuff. How many units do you want in the next 5 years?
10,000, 4 billion.
4 billion?
4 billion in assets, 10,000 units.
Damn, that's crazy. That's cool.
But that's where Grant Cardone's at now. And then he wants, I think he wanted like 50,000 units or some crazy number. And
it's insane.
20 billion. I mean, sky's the limit. He's at a point where if he continues, right, and does the right things, he'll be at that point where too big to fail. Right. And he's borderline there now.
Sure.
So
you were talking about distressed stuff. So what do you think of the market right now?
It's a shit show. I mean, the capital markets in general, and we all see what's the Fed's done over the last 18 months, et cetera, with the rising interest rates. But what's happened in a big set with that is you have commercial loans, unlike residential, are not fixed for long term.
Sure.
You got 3, 5, 7 year type debt, maybe 10 year max. And so you have a lot of loans that are coming due. A lot of ones that were done with variable rate debt over the last few years that can't get out of that debt and are sticking in it right now and can't refinance. So they're just bleeding to death slowly, and then they're going to pop.
Right.
And a lot of that's coming to fruition in 2024 and even 2025, but I mean, a handful of it in 2024. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much of it gets worked out, how much of it goes back to banks, and or how much just gets kind of sold off a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know, but it's a moving storm that will be different than, say, the residential crisis that happened in 2008, because that was very public, right? People being kicked out of their houses on the curbside. It's not like that. Commercial space, it's done behind the scenes a bit.
Sure.
Direct to asset managers, direct to banks, direct to brokers and people, but still a major problem, because a lot of these banks and or connected institutions, they're not going to be able to lend money to people that need it, because they're having major problems internally because of all the bad debt with commercial real estate.
Right.
So that's going to hinder growth, shrink things, could potentially lead to layoffs and job problems, and just, kind of a rolling effect. If you have a lot of bad debt, we got to fix this problem first before we even worry about giving new loans and debt and things for businesses to grow and expand.
Do you think that will affect the residential side as well?
Because I think nothing's going to affect the residential side until people lose jobs. It's all jobs, right? So if you look at the data, we keep having these kind of weird good data, bad data, good data, bad data, until the job market tanks a bit, and people really at a decent level start losing jobs where they can't pay rent or mortgages. Then you'll have a house problem. Right now, the inventory is too low. Nobody's moving. Why would you? I mean, we all know the story. Yeah. Why would you move with a 3% mortgage or 2% or 4%? You wouldn't until there's something that forces that, a life change.
Sure.
Life changes. That's the only people that are moving right now. Life change.
Yeah. It's 25% life events, 25% investors, and the other 50% is not trackable. I just did a video on this recently.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I think that's why like the last 2 years for my business has been booming, is because life events are somewhat correlated to distress, divorce, NODs, deaths, all those things.
I got to move. Yeah. I have to. Yeah. It's not a question of want or hope. It's, hey, I have to do this because of this.
Right.
So that's going to push people to make some decisions.
Yep. That's an interesting market. I'm very curious to see what happens next year in the next 2 years. I saw. Did you see that article on the 6 rate cuts for 2024? What do you think of that?
I don't think it's going to be that much. Once again, it's going to be all relative to the data. So we are seeing things kind of start to, right, a little bit, and you see people tightening up. I can see it because capital's harder to raise. Things are going on. You can kind of feel it a bit. It's an election year, so that is a complete S show. Everything typically stays pretty static, right? Because nobody wants to make any major moves in an election year.
Sure.
People that are in want to get reelected, and people that aren't there want to get there. So they're going to do what they got to do. I don't think you won't have that many rate cuts unless you have a major tank. And once again, jobs. Right. It's all about the jobs. Yeah. Without jobs going this way, they won't move rates because if people have jobs, they can go buy stuff at Amazon. Right. And then consumer and all this stuff happens. Right. And then if they have jobs, they can pay their rent and mortgage. Right. It's all cultivated to that consumer economy, which is what we are. Yeah. So it's all about the jobs. If people have jobs, we're fine. If people don't have jobs, rate cuts. Yeah. I think it's interesting. I saw that article. Obviously, I'm sure you follow a bunch of realtors and lenders who reposted it. I watch every single speech that Jerome Powell has. I look at the data. There's never once in his speech that he indicated that he's doing any type of rate cuts, ever, actually. Right. Of course, everybody jumps on it. Right. And like, oh my God, the Fed's going to drop rates 14 times. I'm like, guys, it's bullshit. Chill out. I said, you're going to overpromise, underperform. Yep. I said, let's see what happens, but it's all going to be driven by job data. Yeah. I just don't think the only way that I see massive rate cuts happening in the next year is if it's political or if something really traumatic happens to our economy. So and Kevin knows this because I did a video on this in 2021. The dying dollar. We are going to go through a currency crisis. It is being teed up. You see the slow movement on it. If you don't look in the mirror real close, it's like staring at us right in the face. Right. And nobody wants to admit what's really going down. I mean, it started in 2020 when China created their own digital yuan. Okay. The US then followed that by starting the digital dollar very quietly. And now it's like the Fed now, right? Whatever they call it. So we did a lot of research on this before we launched this video. The entire global currency and banking system is run out of the BIS, which is the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. It's run by Augustin Carstens. Okay. The US bank, like the Fed, they don't make a decision without them. European central banks don't make a single decision without them. The entire thing is interconnected through the BIS, right? And they used SDRs, which is special drawing rights. And then they use CD, central bank digital coins, CBDCs, and how it's all interconnected. So the day of the dollar, as we know it, is coming to an end, like as we know it, like the fiat dollar. Right. That's simply because the ship's filling up with water. This is why we have $32 trillion in debt. They're not trying to pay it off. It's never going to happen because they know that ship's filling up, not coming back to shore. And they're going to let that thing sail out, and they're going to come in right behind it with another world currency. So I don't know exactly how this thing's going to transfer, but for a period of time, it's going to be somewhat chaotic. Right. And people are going to lose a lot of SHIT going through it. I just don't know how and what trigger is going to trigger that. Right. But if I'm a betting person, it's going to happen on or before the end of 2025. Interesting. Yeah, I do think we've been delaying a huge recession for a long time. You're going to have a currency crisis. Yeah. Guaranteed. Yeah. And we don't know. It's single doubt in my mind. I just don't. I don't know how to best hedge against it other than you have to have tangible assets, not fiat. Crypto. Crypto's a good one. I mean, actually it's fair. Bitcoin, Ethereum, right? Yeah, the two major ones that have intrinsic values. Gold, we own bullion. That's bullion, gold, silver, any of that stuff. Physical assets, real estate, physical asset. Right. Anything physical, right? Anything physical that you can transfer into any currency is what you want. Right. But the fiat dollar, as you know it, is changing and it's moving to something else. And so I don't know exactly how that moment is going to go down. But I can tell you right now, the Federal Reserve is planning for it. They're not dumb. Right. And they've been planning for this for a few years. There's other central banks around the world that have been planning on it. So it's a coming. Yeah.
What would you, with higher interest rates right now, like with people who are wanting to get into real estate rentals, how, like there's the 4 pillars, right? Appreciation, depreciation, principal pay down, and cash flow.
Yep.
Right now, it's almost virtually impossible to cash flow.
It's tougher. I mean, depending on prices and what you're getting and so forth. I mean, you just have to put a lot of money down.
On the residential space, yeah.
You got to put a lot of money down. So you're seeing 35 to 45% down payments.
Okay.
On pretty much anything rental based.
So for the average person who's looking to invest in real estate, do you think it's a good time?
I do. Yes, absolutely. It's never a bad time. It's just depending on what side of your coin you're on.
Sure.
So if you can get into where you're buying stuff that has some distress on it, right? Seller financing, do assumable loans, creative financing type stuff on these things. Even the traditional debt's fine. It's just going to require you in the short term to put a lot of money down.
Right.
35 to 45% to get it to pencil. Now, refinancing is always there.
Right.
And so if you can get something to pencil at 40% down and 7% interest rates, then it sure as heck is going to pencil, right? When you can 3 years later, which will happen, rates come down, you can refinance into say 5-6% debt and then do a little maybe cash out to where it's 70% leverage.
Right.
So that's the beauty about the commercial space is you can do that fairly easily.
Yeah. With residential, I feel like it's almost, even with like some of the deals that I've bought this year that I've kept, one of them I bought for like $465 is what I bought it for. And it ended up appraising. I only put 25 into it and it appraised at 930.
Holy.
But even at that, it's still not cash flowing.
Really?
Yeah.
So the rental values aren't.
I'm like 50%, whatever that is. Like,
so the rental value is not strong enough then to carry that debt.
I got $3,250.
What's your interest rate?
8.
Okay. Wow. Interest only or principal and interest?
30-year fixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. Because normally, if you get that much down, you should be able to at least get it to.
That's why I asked that question. Because I'm like, I
have students in my mentorship right now. Right. Like they're getting ready to close on a deal in Tucson, to give you one example, and they have seller financing at 6% for 3 years, and they're going in and buying it at cash flows at about a 7% cash on cash, about a 17-18% IRR on their money.
Right.
But because of the seller financing and assumable debt, so the creative financing is going to be the ideal state for any asset right now. But you're seeing commercial debt on any Freddie Fannie kind of in the 6s right now.
It's not bad.
And then any kind of commercial debt beyond that that's a little more hair on it is going to be in the 7s.
Right.
But yeah, we're seeing it happen.
Yeah.
It's there.
I just think it's challenging on the residential side. Like for me, I would love to.
But that's where the commercial space comes in. You're going to get better debt.
No, I know. I just don't understand that space, right? So for me, like learning from the beginning, I think because you evolved, right? Like you didn't start with commercial.
No,
you started with a duplex or a condo first.
But I got into it. I started learning all about that stuff, syndication, apartments. I mean, there was a journey, just like anybody, to get mentored and learn all of that. But I did that through a handful of different mentors that I paid to play with.
Sure. And I'm sure the scalability of it now is far greater than what you can do with residential, right?
At the moment. I mean, I have people that tell me they want to go, oh, I'm buying these 10 single families. I'm like, let me get this straight. And then we'll finish up on this. You want to go buy 10 single family homes all over the place with 10 roofs,
right?
10 repair requests, or 10 different properties to repair, 10 different mortgages, 10 different insurances, 10 different everything, 10 different yards, 10 different problems, 10 different lots. You get the point. Or I can go buy a 10-unit building in one location. I can drive up to it and I can fix everything in one time in that one building at that one moment. And I have one insurance policy and one mortgage and one roof. And like, what are you doing?
Right.
And but I don't understand it. That's usually the response I get. I'm fearful of it. I don't understand it. But then I actually break it down. I said, it'll be easier for you to buy this 10-unit building than it will to be buy a single family home.
Right.
Simply because of how the debt in the commercial loan space works.
Yeah.
And I said, once you understand that, and I had an epiphany moment like a year or two ago. We were trying to raise money for a deal, and I'm sitting there with some private equity guys, and I'm saying, okay, well, we need about $3.5 million left to fill up our cap stack on this apartment building. They're like, Justin, like, we love the opportunity. We love you. We know this is going to be great, but we can't give you $3 million.
Right.
But we can give you $10 million. And I said, excuse me?
Okay.
Yeah. And they're like, no, we can give you $10 million. We'd love to give you $10 million, but we can't give you $3 million because like economies of scale, like we need this for this, this, and this. I said, holy like this is crazy.
Right.
I said, I'm only needing $3 million. You want to give me 10? They said, yeah, go find us a deal. We can give you $10 million and we are in. I said, done. And that's where it moved us into that, from that 20 to 50 unit space into the 100+ unit space. Because I sat there going, like, these guys are on board. And now I have private equity guys coming to us that all day long, they said, you go find a deal that pencils in these parameters, you have a blank check, go.
Yeah, your space is something.
Now I'm a glorified deal finder.
Yeah.
Well, and then I get a piece of the deal.
You have to.
Right? And you come in and you syndicate it and you're the general partner, et cetera.
I think that's the best thing to be a deal finder, though. Like,
it's a piece of the puzzle.
It is.
It's a piece of the puzzle because I'm really good at operations.
But I think that's
deal
the
finding.
biggest piece of the puzzle.
Sure, right now, because capital's not the problem.
No.
It's finding a deal that capital can go into and all that other stuff. So, well, this has been incredible.
Yeah, dude. It's good.
Thank you for sharing a little bit of time with us. Anything we can kind of finish off? How can people find you, number one? And then anything you want to kind of leave us with? Any tidbits?
Tidbits.
Actually, one piece of advice as a newly married man.
Yeah.
One piece of advice. Go. What would you? Because
I don't know that I should have advice right now.
I think you should.
It's like 2 weeks. I don't know. Maybe have sex often.
Okay. Good. Good. Fair enough. What do they say? Make plans and make love, right?
Yeah.
Make plans and make love. I like that.
Yeah. If you're not doing that, you're probably in trouble.
Well, yeah. You know, it's interesting because women connect emotionally, as we all know, and then men connect physically. That's just how we sense intimacy, and then women the other way around. So, but you got to have combo.
Yeah. Date nights are important. I think just spending time together. I think we realized too that like at night we try to turn our phones on.
What are your love languages?
Mine?
Yeah.
My love language is, I know hers is touch.
Physical touch. Well, most men are physical touch. So yeah.
Hers is touch.
Physical touch.
Mine is not touch.
Really?
No.
Yours is not physical touch.
What's the?
I mean, because you usually have two. You have a primary, secondary.
Name them. Remind me.
Physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, gifts. No, acts of kindness.
You must be
something like that. Missing the other one. So.
Mine's definitely affirmations and then quality time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See, that's what a typical girl's would be. Not. I mean,
I don't know.
I'm not calling you a girl. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Maybe I'm.
But that's usually what you hear from a. You know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Quality time is probably more on the top of that.
Gotcha.
Words of affirmation is probably.
Yeah, I'm a words of affirmation and physical touch.
Yeah.
I figured that out.
Yeah.
So interesting.
I don't like being touched, actually.
Dude, you're a dude.
For the longest time. No. But like for the longest time, like if like.
But you know what physical touch means.
Yeah, of course. But like as a guy going to like get a massage, I feel like I didn't start getting into liking massages until this year. This year.
Because your wife liked them, huh?
I didn't like being touched by like.
Interesting.
It's weird. It like felt awkward.
Or if they kind of get up in there a little bit too much.
It's like, hey, touching my butthole.
We're getting into some serious shit here on the podcast.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And if you want to find him, Instagram, right?
Yeah. Josh_Giordani and then Modern Mindset Podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Till next time, everybody. Sign off. Take care.